I'm obsessed with everything that just happened.
Buckle up, kids, because Carrie the Musical and the Black Hood are wreaking havoc in Riverdale. So let's break down Season 2, Episode 18, right here on What Happened. What's going on, all my lovely Riverdalians? Dalians? Aliens? I don't know where I got that from, but fellow Riverdale lovers. Lisa here, and after a few agonizing weeks, Riverdale's finally back with a really big bang and a highly anticipated musical episode. So I actually got to see this episode early at Paley Fest like last month, and I posted a review of it on another video, but briefly I'll just say it again. I really loved this episode. I think it's my favorite of this season so far. And I'm usually not the biggest fan of musical episodes for TV shows, unless we're maybe talking about the Ethan Stevens musical episode, or I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer made it work.
We went to the moon in 1969, not 1970, but a year sooner.
A lot of times I feel like shows just force a musical episode and they have no business singing and dancing, but for Riverdale, it works. Now, Carrie the Musical is a very good fit for everything happening with our characters at this point in the season. And while yes, it does suffer from its cheesy and cringy moments, sorry KJ Appa's dancing, it was ultimately fun. And I'm sure KJ's a great dancer, by the way, but this kind of dancing just wasn't for him. It was kind of funny. But really, what better way to resolve your issues and get out your frustrations than through a good song and dance? I mean, hey, it worked for Troy Bolton.
That's who I am, that is my plan. We'll end up on top, you can bet on it, bet on it, bet on it, bet on you can.
And it definitely works for our characters in this episode as they mend some relationships that have been on the rocks for the past few episodes. We also see that Cheryl returns to her queen form in this episode, which all I have to say is something I normally would never be caught dead saying, but yes, queen. Stick it to Penelope. Also, the Black Hood is back and someone dies, but thankfully it's not one of our main characters, so do we really care? Just kidding, but R.I.P. Midge. Let's get this party started. First, let's talk about one of our former villains, Chuck Clayton. We saw that he was trying to clean up his act back in the episode where he took Josie on a date and Cheryl was obsessed with Josie. Now, everyone's been wary of him, however, since his awful behavior in Season 1 that brought out Dark Betty. Well, Chuck really is actually trying to redeem himself, and he decides to join the musical even though he knows he'll be playing the villain again. But he's been on his best behavior and wins over Veronica and the gang. Now, I know some people don't like Chuck, but I actually like his arc because it shows that people can change for the better and learn from their mistakes. I mean, he's a teenager. Teenagers make dumb mistakes. Yes, he made a pretty grave mistake with whatever that list they were doing with the keeping track of the girls and all of that, but I feel like everybody kind of deserves a second chance, so don't blow it, Chuck. As for Fred, he's trying to make some time to hang more with Archie, and he thinks the musical could bring them together, so Fred volunteers to build the sets. But you know who's right there in the wings waiting to tear them apart? Yeah, Hiram Lodge, of course. I think it's kind of like Napoleon syndrome, maybe, this little guy has. Archie is too scared to tell Fred about the Firebird Hiram gave him because he thinks it will just make things worse, so Archie asks Veronica if he can keep it part of the Pembroke. Well, since Fred is running on the platform of family values but Mary's gone and his relationship with Archie is strained, Hiram plans to keep it that way and he learns from Veronica to deal with the car, so Hiram of course marches right in that school and brings the issue of the car up with Fred and just walks out. Archie's left to clean up the mess and he just doesn't really see why it's such a big deal with this car, but Fred reveals that your first car is a big deal and he had this dream and planned to fix up an old car with Archie just like his own dad did with him. So yeah, Fred was really hurt by this whole thing. Well, thanks to the musical and playing the part of Tommy, and Kevin also telling Archie that he's like the living embodiment of Tommy, Archie realizes he's actually made a lot of mistakes and he's not the guy that he used to be, so now he needs to set things right. So he goes and finds his cojones and marches into Hiram's office and basically says no one comes between him and his dad. You'll lose the battle every time, and he gives Hiram back the car keys. That's the Archie that I have been missing. He then goes and buys an old jalopy to fix up and basically brings Fred to tears. So Fred and Archie are on the mend, as are Veronica and Betty. Now, Betty thinks Veronica is the literal embodiment of her character, Chris. Like I said, pretty much all the characters are the embodiments of the characters in the musical. But Chris, she's a spoiled rich girl with daddy issues who tries to control everyone around her. Betty has no problem saying all her thoughts straight to Veronica's face, but Archie thinks it's a little much and pulls Betty aside and tells her to give Veronica a break because Veronica's under a lot of pressure. She's undergoing some, insane circumstances. She's doing the best she can. He then brings up how quickly Veronica forgave Betty after the Black Hood made Betty say all those mean things about Veronica. I'm not quite sure if those are on the same level, but Archie's talk serves its purpose. Betty and Archie get up to rehearse Sue and Tommy's love ballad, but it actually ends up becoming a love ballad of friendship between Betty and Veronica instead, as they make amends. Another duo making amends in this episode are Betty and Alice. Now, the last we saw of Alice, she was heading into FP's trailer. Well, since that night, Alice has embraced her serpent past and is rocking some leather and snake print shirt when she goes to see FP at Pops to invite him to the musical. But FP's actually being really cold with her, so what gives, FP? You're giving mixed signals here. As Alice is rehearsing her song, which finds Carrie's mom basically telling Carrie to not go, Alice really gets into it and starts singing it to Betty in the crowd, even changing the names. Alice gets so emotional and is upset because Chick is not returning her calls, and she tells Betty that she feels like she's driven everyone in her life away. Betty now feels like she kind of has to do something to make Alice feel less alone and abandoned, so who does she call? Hal. Yeah, not many people were probably happy about that, but maybe Hal actually is trying to turn over a new leaf, or he has some kind of hidden agenda. Well, we won't know yet. Hal wants to come home and he doesn't care that Chick isn't his son. He just wants to make things right, and seems like Alice accepts this proposal, and Betty eavesdrops and actually looks pretty happy as well. You know who's not happy? FP. He does actually show up to opening night, but he sees Alice and Hal together, so he turns and walks back out of the auditorium. I mean, you snooze, you lose, FP, but I would say don't give up, because I'm kind of still rooting for FP and Alice. Moving on to Queen Cheryl. She is playing Carrie, but some members of the ensemble aren't too happy about that casting, especially Josie, because these two are at odds since Josie learned about Cheryl basically being obsessed with her. After Cheryl belts out a number to prove why she deserves to be Carrie, a sandbag falls right in front of her, almost knocking her out. Kevin then reveals to Jughead, who's being the documentarian for this musical, that there was a note in his locker from the Black Hood demanding that the role of Carrie be recast or else. What makes this letter different from the past Black Hood letters is that it's made up with cut-up magazines, so everyone kind of assumes it's fake right off the bat. Betty, though, actually thinks maybe Ethel could be the culprit, so Betty tries to get Ethel to say something incriminating as Jughead films, but it doesn't really work. Josie and Cheryl then practice their duet, which is supposed to be about Miss Gardner being a friend to Carrie, but Josie's really not conveying that in her singing, and it causes Cheryl to stop the number and apologize to Josie. They end up finishing the song, and all seems well, and yep, I feel like only teenagers in TV shows can get over their drama in the snap of the fingers. Kevin ends up getting another letter from the Black Hood, this time more frightening, so Kevin sits Cheryl down and tells her the truth that, well, not all the truth, he just says that she has to be recast for her own safety, but Cheryl is not about to let that happen. Then the devil, Penelope, shows up and tells Cheryl that she can't be in the play because she needs parental consent, and, well, Penelope's never gonna give it to her. So now Cheryl feels really defeated and confides in Tony, saying that all she wanted to do was to prove to everyone she's still herself, but now she actually thinks that she isn't. Carrie was able to stand up to her mother, but it seems like Cheryl has lost that power. Tony then tells Cheryl, though, to show her mom who was in charge.
I'm not the same girl who burned down Thornhill and cut off her oxygen.
Sure you are. You're not done playing Carrie, Cheryl.
And you're damn right, Cheryl is not done playing Carrie just yet. In fact, she slips on that Carrie dress, grabs a bucket of blood, and shows up at Thistle House to confront Penelope, and telling her that if she so much as picks a hair from Nana's head, she'll burn the house down again. So what does actually does Cheryl really want? She wants to be emancipated and Thistle House to herself and Nana. She then demands that Penelope and Claudius hit the road because, well, they're pig people. Hell yeah, Cheryl. Penelope, you better get to packing. Now, as far as the role of Carrie, that ends up going to Midge, who I think was doing some hanky-panky, maybe with Fangs in her dressing room, which causes Moose to storm down the hallway mad, even though Fangs is supposedly gay and flirting with Kevin in this episode, so that whole situation was kind of confusing. Well, Jughead, though, who is continuing his job as documentarian, but also still playing detective, ends up in Ethel's dressing room before the show and finds a bunch of cut-up magazines, to which Ethel says were for her vision board. Now, the show's about to start and everyone's doing their vocal warm-ups when who shows up? Chick. Yeah, it wouldn't be a party without Chick, right? Betty does not seem too happy to see him, but then did she invite him? Because she says, oh, you came. She then tells him he should really go back to his seat. The show's about to start, so as the show begins and Alice sings the number where she tells Carrie to come out of her closet, the set raises and everyone's confused because Midge misses her cue. Why exactly does she miss her cue? Because she's been stabbed with a bunch of pair of scissors and is stuck up on the wall with a bloody note from the Black Hood that says, "I am back from the dead. All those who escaped me before will die." Yeah, everyone starts to panic and run out of the auditorium, but Jughead actually still has his camera running, and there's only one person who seems to be sitting calmly through all of this chaos. It's Chick. Yeah, kind of not surprising, right? And well, I think that kind of wraps up the main events of this episode. We have Betty and Veronica made up, Cheryl and Josie made up, Hal and Alice made up, Fred and Archie made up, Cheryl stood up to her mom, Archie stood up to Hiram, and well, poor FP is sad. And also, the Black Hood is back. Now, if he wanted the role of Carrie recast so bad, was this because he didn't want to kill Cheryl? Was he like always planning to kill whatever minor character got the understudy role? Who exactly is this Black Hood? I feel like they're trying to make it seem like it's different people. We got Ethel, but I don't really think she could hurt a fly. Moose, who was angry, but I don't really think he'd kill Midge. And of course, Sheriff Keller kept wandering around backstage, and I'm really not sure what he was doing because he wasn't protecting jack shit. I mean, Chick got backstage, someone managed to kill Midge without being noticed and tack her up to a wall and write that whole message all by themselves without being detected. How that on earth happened is very unrealistic, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I feel like plenty of people also still think Hal has something to do with the Black Hood, but right now I feel like they're just making all signs point to Chick, which is kind of too obvious, but what exactly would his motive be? Chick just kind of seems to want his family back, and Midge wasn't really messing with that, but maybe now that he's sort of been rejected by his family again, he's going to take it out on everyone, but why wouldn't he want to hurt Cheryl if that's the reason he wanted the role recast? So many questions, right? Now, performance-wise, this was a really great episode for Madeleine Petsch and Machen Amick. I think they both had my favorite performances of this episode, and I'm also excited to see what the show does with Chuck exactly, because Roberto said at Paley Fest he wanted Chuck to, get redeemed and kind of interact more with the gang, but also another character the show hasn't really used much is Reggie, so would they pick Chuck over Reggie? What's going on here? There's so many characters. Not everybody gets the screen time they deserve. I think they're still utilizing Kevin and Josie as well as and Tony even, so I want to see more of kind of all these characters, but then it's going to get to be too much, and I don't know, I'm rambling again. But all I know is that, some good stuff is definitely in store for the final episodes this season, so let's take a look at the promo for the next episode.
About your feelings, baby.
I can't stop thinking about what the Black Hood wrote. All those who escaped me before will die.
Alright, so at the time I'm making this video right now, the extended promo hasn't been released, so I'm just going to talk about this short promo that I watched, which includes, obviously, a lot of clues for the next episode. It looks like Betty and Jughead go to visit the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, and I'm going to guess that maybe they're trying to get more info about Chick. Archie is running, but he kind of does that a lot, but is he running from someone or after someone? We also see Chick running at the end of the promo, so is maybe Archie chasing Chick, or is Archie chasing the Black Hood? Veronica has some cash, which looks fishy. Someone vandalized Sheriff Keller's car, maybe trying to frame him as the killer, or maybe he could be the killer, or maybe he did kill someone. Well, obviously he did. He killed the Black Hood, the janitor, and if that guy wasn't really the Black Hood, then I guess Sheriff Keller is a killer. The Black Hood is also following Archie around, and FP stops Jughead from beating the crap out of someone while Betty has a gun. Yeah, things are getting dark and good. And now it is your time to sound off in the comments down below. What did you think of this musical episode? What was your favorite part and maybe least favorite part? Who do you think this Black Hood is? Will Penelope actually give Cheryl what she wants? And will Hal and Alice actually get back together? Or will FP make a move? Leave all your thoughts and theories down in the comments, and then you can click right over here to watch me play a fun game of Never Have I Ever for the movie Truth or Dare with Lucy Hale and Tyler Posey. Now, if you like what you see, feel free to hit that subscribe button, maybe a little thumbs up, and well, that pretty much wraps up this episode. My name's Lisa. Thanks for hanging out with me.